welcome to Simulated St. Croix, and welcome to the Spy Flight over on YouTube. Hello, welcome to the channel. Welcome if you are new. My name is Dave. I do the Spy Flights over on Twitch, and usually once or twice a week I like to come over here to YouTube and do what I call a complete cold and dark full flight. This is sort of the opportunity to go and do a complete flight, show you a few of the things that I might have picked up about some of these really cool airplanes, show you each button that I'm pushing, and where to find some interesting little pieces of information in the flight plan that you can probably use. So before we go out to the airplane, let me tell you what we're doing today. We are taking the ATR 42 Model 600 on a full cold and dark flight. The add-ons that I'm using today, Navigraph, SimBrief, and Volanta. SkyVector is a great resource too for looking at weather and doing VFR planning. I use FlightAware to try and figure out where there are real-world flights. And something I need to put on your flight sim radar. There is a really good channel here on YouTube who it's done by a real-world ATR captain and flight instructor. The channel is called Fly with Magnar, and if you want to learn about the ATR, that is probably the single best resource that I have found. And what's really cool is Magnar has just started a series of videos on the ATR in the flight sim. So telling you about all the real world stuff, but showing you how to make it work in the flight simulator. So I really think that that's definitely a good channel for you to follow. Today, we're going to be shadowing a real world flight today. It is a short flight. Short flights are great for learning how to take off and land. And the more takeoffs and landings you can do, the better your flying experience is going to be. We're also doing some island hopping. As you can tell from the goofy shirt, the islands, the beaches, they're wonderful places. It's also great scenery. So absolutely love hopping around the islands. It's one of my favorite places to sim fly. And also, do not forget to crank in real world weather. If this is your first time on the Spy Flight, again, welcome to the channel. Welcome if you're new. The whole point, stop the video right now and load up your sim and fly along with me. I'm going to show you the flight plan and everything. One thing I like to suggest is start a notepad. Just open up Notepad or something, start taking a couple of notes, that way you can go back. The cool part about YouTube is you can pause, restart, rewind the video. In case you missed something that I did, you can go back and look at it again. It's the way that I learn how to do things when I'm watching other YouTube videos. I also like to suggest do your own hometown flight. Take off from your own hometown airport in this airplane in a couple of days. That way it'll help you remember some of the things that maybe you picked up here. And also, please join us for the Spy Flights over on Twitch. I will tell you more about that as we are flying along right now. Our flight today is St. Croix to San Juan. It is a real-world flight departing off of runway 10 on St. Croix. Cute little airport. That's a small payware airport, but it's a really nice one. It is a fairly simple flight out. Hamilton 9 departure, and then we're going to fly on over to runway 8 to land. Our cruise altitude is 12,000 feet. It's a 55-minute flight. The distance is only 99 miles. Okay? So enough of that yapping. Let's talk about loading the airplane. There's two ways to load the airplane. One, if you've got a widget. The other is if you've got if you don't have this widget. So I'm going to show you just the default way first. And the first thing that you need is the flight plan. And if you've done your flight planning through SimBrief, you probably got the PDF flight plan file, right? So this is the Lido style. This is default. This is the basic flight plan, nothing special. And what we want is page number 3. There's two numbers you want off of this. You want the payload number, which is 3496, and you also want the fuel, which is 1470. Okay, and I'm doing all of my flights except in Boeing's in kilograms and kilos. Okay, so what you do to get this is go up to the top menu bar and get the weight. So there's weight and balance, and there's those two numbers that you need. This is where you're going to find them. So fuel, I'm at 1495. You want to go ahead and use this slider up here to get your fuel number set as close as you can. I always say a little bit higher rather than a little bit lower is probably a good idea. And the same thing, use this payload slider over here, and that's going to be your payload. And you want that to be as close to the payload number. So my payload was supposed to be 3496. I'm at 3500. Again, just a little bit more, and that's okay. I'm also going to look over here, and I'm going to take a look at my center of gravity and just make sure it's between the forward and aft limits right now. Eventually, I'm going to start learning more about center of gravity in the airplane and how to plan for that. But right now, that's where I am. And that's it. The airplane's loaded, okay? The other way is if you have a widget called Flow Pro. This is a payware, but there is a widget that you can get for this payware, and it's called ATR. It's done by Tim Dog, who does some really cool widgets over for Flow. And I'm going to just click the ATR button, and you can see it says loading payload. And it goes to your flight plan, and it grabs it and plugs it all in, and there you go. You're all set. This is a really nice little widget. You can see payload is now 3496. Fuel is 1470. We are now spot on, and we're loaded. So again, page 3, if you're going to load it manually, you need payload and fuel, and that's it. So those are your two numbers. Let's go out to the airplane. It's a little bit breezy here today. In St. Croix. I think it's always kind of a little bit breezy at the islands, and that kind of makes for a little bit more of a challenge. And there is our airplane. We are shadowing a real-world flight from Silver Airways. These pink little ATRs are flying all around as pilots of the Caribbean. Here's your dumb joke there. But as pilots of the Caribbean here. So let's go ahead and start it up. The doors are closed. The only way to open those is to hit your cockpit button and come on over here to the airplane. And I've got this set to aircraft. The first thing I want is ground power. The next thing I want is the cargo door and the main door. And if you go outside real fast, you can see your doors opening. And there are the doors. If you're in the longer version of the ATR, you also want that little tail skid in the back so your airplane doesn't tip down. And that's it. It's time to turn on the airplane. And first thing we're going to do is come over here and we're going to turn on the battery. When you turn on the battery, you'll see the multifunction computer lights flashing at you. It's just a little self-test that it's going to do. And with that on, we're going to turn on the nav lights. And we're going to look down here, and you should see the number 2 and number 4 LCD screens pop up with the big T. That's the self-test. And then we'll also, I think we're going to see the pilot's McDo kick on as we go forward. You're also, during the startup process, you're going to get lots of caution lights. As we're powering up the airplane, just go ahead and click the lights, and there you go. And it takes, I believe, about 30 seconds. Magnar says the real airplane takes about 90 seconds or more to get everything turned on. And with all of that, it looks pretty good. So let's go over here. You saw I clicked on ground power. Ground power is available. So we're going to turn on ground power here. And you're going to hear more fans going. And you're also going to see more monitors pop on. So that's looking good. My MFD down here did not turn on. Let's see if I need to hold the menu button or something. There it is. I must have punched a button there earlier while I was setting up a few things. And by the way, setting up a few things, just making sure my cameras were in great shape. I didn't do anything that you're not going to see here. Okay, we've got monitor 1, 3, 5. We've also got the co-pilot's FMC, McDo, I think. And we got some flashing lights down here. That's not a big deal. We can go and cancel those too. And the airplane's looking pretty good. The next thing that they do is called clear all the white lights. So there's several lights that we're going to do. We're going to do the generators, DC generator 1 and 2. We're just going to turn those on. The white lights that you're going to leave off, though, are the probe heaters. Okay, those are the probe heaters on the front of the airplane. I think those get really, really hot, and ground crew could burn themselves on them. So we're going to leave those off, but we're going to turn on the windshield heat. We're going to look up here, and I'm going to turn on the AC Wild generator 1 and 2. It says external power is available, but we don't turn that on. That's for maintenance. We're also going to turn on the hydraulic power. So we're going to get the hydraulic power on. We're going to turn on the main oxygen, because apparently, humans need to breathe or some silly stuff. And there we go. All of this is pretty much done. If you want to, you could come over here and do the annunciator light check. And so that's this little switch here. So 2 clicks up, and basically it lights up the Christmas tree. And it turns on all of your lights. And the pilots will do that to make sure that all the lights are working in the cockpit. So that's a little light check you can do. During the daytime, you want to go ahead and turn the annunciator light switch down to dim. You could, I mean bright, but then at nighttime, you're going to go and turn that to dim. Okay? So we got those. Usually at this point in time, I'm going to go and start the process of doing the flight planning and getting the McDo set up here. And I'm just going to kind of reset this. If I'm flying by myself, I kind of have some interesting views, but today we're just going to, I'm going to zoom it in so you can see a little bit tighter. Okay, so FMS, we're going to click activate. If you have Navigraph data, I believe this should show Navigraph data. I think so, I hope. And let's go to the init page. It should show the date. I think the date looks correct. I'm doing real weather, real time, so that's good. And the first thing I'm going to do, you don't have to do position init. This is an updated version. Apparently that's automatic in the airplane. But we're going to go to the weight page. And there's 2 ways you can go and put your own zero fuel weight in, or just hold the ZFW button down a little bit, and that's going to give you the current zero fuel weight, which is a little bit more than I planned for, but that gives you the exact number. The next thing we'll do is hit the FOB, and there's your fuel on board, and that's pretty close to right on. The next number you need is the reserve number. And that's a number that you're going to get on page 1, and it's at the about halfway, little more than halfway down. And what you want is this number right here, final reserve and alternate fuel. That's a combination of these 3, final reserve, alternate, and contingency fuel, and that's 780. So 780 kg, so 780, and you manually put that in there. Okay? And all of this is looking pretty good. I'm still learning about takeoff CG and trim on this airplane, so I'm not going to touch it right now. I will learn a little more, and that'll be a new video. Return. And now we can go and do the flight plan. We're going to do the main route, and we are at TISX, St. Croix, TISX. Do the little slash, and we are going to San Juan, which is TJSJ. TJSJ. TISX, TJSJ. I am kind of trying to be careful. McDo's do not have spell check, so there you go. And we can execute that, and you see there's our flight plan. The next thing we'll do is put in our departure runway. Our departure runway, we already know from just looking at the flight plan, that is going to be runway 10. And you'll see me looking over as I'm plugging in this data, just looking at the flight plan, as opposed to trying to remember all of this stuff. I actually look at it as I'm plugging it in. We're doing the Hamilton 9 departure, and we're going to do it via CHAKA. Okay, and so all that's good. Execute that. And then after CHAKA, we're going to do Route 6 to San Juan. So it's going to be Route 6 to San Juan. So next page, and that is SJU, VOR. And let's see. I think that is actually an airway. So let's click CHAKA and click airway, Route 6, and click takeoff 2 and SJU, right? There we go. That's it. That's a little bit, it seems a little bit backwards the way I did that, and you may want to go back and watch the way I did that, but that's the way you need to do it with the flight simulator at the moment if you're going to program in an airway. And we now have our airway that takes us to San Juan. After that, we're going to go to do our arrival. We're expecting the ILS for runway 8. We are not doing any of the arrivals here. There is one called the CHAKA 4 arrival, but I didn't get that one, so we're just going to go none. And is there a VIA? SJU. So the San Juan VOR. So TISX, Croix, CHAKA, SJU, Wesson. There's a hold. It already set us a hold at Wesson. By that time, we'll probably be flying manually to runway 8, and our flight plan is done. Next thing we'll do is go over to hit the data button, and we're going to hit init and performance initialization. Now here, we're going to do our cruise altitude, and that is 12,000 feet. And I do the last 3 zeros. It's just easier to remember. Our alternate airport. So over on page 2 of the flight plan, our alternate is to go back here to St. Croix. And if we do, we're going to do it at 19,000 feet. So alternate is TISX. TISX. Do the little slash. And then after that, you're going to put in that cruise altitude, which is 19,000 feet, if we have to come back to our alternate, and that goes down here. Now, when you click it, sometimes it takes a while. And I think it's looking up an airport or something. So that might take a little time. Don't freak out if it takes forever. Okay, and then we're going to return. And now we're done with, we've done flight plan, performance. Yeah, we did performance initialization. So now we're going to do, the performance page for takeoff and cruise and landing. And this has already calculated our cruise, our takeoff speeds. And again, I don't know 100%. I'm just taking it right off of this. I may have missed something, but these speeds seem to work pretty good. Transition altitude. Let's just check here in the islands. So on the Hamilton departure, transition is 18,000 feet, and the arrival transition is 18,000 feet. So we don't have to change it. That's the default. So 18,000 feet, and then we could go to page 2. Okay, here's a bunch of stuff to fill out. Mean wind is another word for average winds. And this is your cruise winds is another word for that. 3 different words mean the same thing. And average winds are here on page 1, and our average winds for the flight at our altitude are 116 degrees at 11 knots. So 116 degrees / 11 knots. And there we go. This will fill in some fuel and time as after we get the engines going and start taking off and flying. And then the last page we're going to look at is the approach GPS, is the approach page, excuse me. Transition is 18,000 feet. QNH. This is a really short flight. If it was longer, I would get our arrival altimeter setting. I would get that later, but this is so short. I'm going to do it now because we're going to be busy. And that's 30.0, according to the METAR 4. 3004. I'm also going to put the winds in, which is 140 at 4. 140/04 knots. And if the winds were gusting, then you would you also put gusts in, but you still need to do the slash and a 0 for gusts. And now we've got that all set up too. Okay, and 2 previous pages, and there's the takeoff page, and that's now pretty much set. Let's go ahead and get into hotel mode. And then after hotel mode, we can go and finish up the autopilot and take off and fly. So hotel mode is kind of interesting. Hotel mode is sort of like an APU. This airplane does not have an APU. So there's no APU to save weight. So they've set it up so you can use the right-hand engine as your APU. Now, what we got to do is we've got to turn on the prop brake first, because there's ground crew. We don't want propellers spinning and stuff. And that's over here. Now, one of the things that I'm told is they need to fix this. This ready light should not be on. We should have to pressurize the hydraulic system a little bit first. So we got to go and we're going to engage the prop brake. And if it's blue, then you can guard it. And now the prop brake is on. On the ground, what you do is you don't turn on the beacon, but you do turn on the wing lights, and that signals to the ground crew that you're about ready to engage that engine. They're going to be a little more careful. So the next thing to do is go to fuel pump 1. Fuel pump 1, you're going to see the feed low pressure light go out. If you want to do a fuel pump test, you could also turn on the cross feed. Both lights should go out, and that would test that. So you could also check that as well. Let's go ahead down here, and we're going to turn on the engine starter. First flight of the day, you're supposed to do A and B, and then we can go ahead and start engine number 2. Start. Look down at your engine instruments. Okay, your NH percent is going up. At 10%, you lift your condition lever up to feather. And then you can come in here, make sure the prop brake stays, the prop RPM stays 0, and that engine is slowly powering up there. And we're just going to leave it like that. So we'll just leave it there. And that looks pretty good. And now if you look up here, we can now go and watch that DC generator 2 fault light. We're going to turn off external power. And if it goes out, that means you are now getting electricity off of the engine number 2 in hotel mode. And from here, we can now go and release the ground power card. We're going to close the cargo door right now. And we're going to also close the main door. Now, if in the real world, they would be handing you a load sheet, and if you've already closed the door, how do you get it? Well, there's something here called the mailbox. And that's this thing here. And this is a little door outside. And if you look up here, you can see this hatch is now open. And so we got that little hatch open right there. They call that the mailbox. And I believe that unless there's like really cold air blowing in or something like that, you leave the mailbox or the document door open until you close the doors, and you've got all, you might have to open it again, but we're going to close that, and there's the document door, which is a cool little thing. Okay, time to do the autopilot, and from here we're going to have to look up some numbers. First of all, we're going to look up our departure heading on the runway. And our departure heading, we're taking off on runway 10, so that's going to be 097 degrees on the chart. So let's go ahead and plug in 097 degrees over here. And this is a small number down here that so you're turning the crank up here and turning this over to 097 degrees. And as usual, I went the wrong way. I always seem to take the long way when I'm dialing this in. 097, that's our heading off the runway. 5, 6, 7, 8, and there's 090 and 097. And then if you zoom in, you can look there and see 097. Next thing is you look at your departure, and our departure today is the Hamilton 9 departure. So Hamilton 9, we take off, and we're going to go out via CHAKA. That's the 316 degree radial from the St. Croix VOR. Is there an initial climb? Yes, there is. If you're starting to fly on VATSIM, make sure you check for an initial climb on your SID. That's becoming a thing. So 6,000 feet. And that's going to be a small number right here above the altitude. So we'll crank that up. And 6,000 feet. 2, 3, 4, 5... and that's 5, 9, and 6. Then again, zoom in, make sure you got the correct number in there. Good. So that's set. And now we're pretty much ready to go ahead and start flipping a few more switches and do a checklist. So doors closed, passengers are aboard. Oh, after we're done with the starter, I should have turned the starter off. So we're going to go ahead, and we've got some switches in the cabin. Seatbelts, devices, turn off your cell phones, and we're going to arm the emergency exit lights. Okay? So we got those, and now we're going to run a checklist. If you're new to the airplane, there are click spots here on the LCDs here. And if you go over to options and hit display click spot help, there are all the click spots. I suggest that the thing to do is do a screen grab of this when you're learning it and put it over on your other monitor or something. If you've got a screen grab, that way you can always refer to it, or just leave it up here on the electronic flight bag. But those are all the click spots, and they really help out. So let's go over here, and we're going to look at this checklist. And you can see my pending checklist is final cockpit preparation. And the bottom click spot moves you. And basically this tells you your electronic procedures, your checks. It's the copyright notice. We'll call it that. And that procedure is been cleared. Parking brake is engaged. We check that. Ooh, altimeters. 3004. I have not set my altimeter. So I set 3004 in the altimeter. And this is also the time, by the way, that I will switch over here and go to the other side of this target speed, and I will put it in managed speed for takeoff. Okay, so altimeters are good. Landing elevation. The new McDo on this airplane, your landing elevation is automatically entered into this. So if this is blank, that's supposed to be good to go. The FMS and comms and navs are done. Fuel quantity and fuel on board. So fuel quantity and fuel on board is over here, and it automatically switches this. 730, that should be about 1470. And that looks pretty good. Engine fuel used, we're gonna reset that. And I'm also gonna confirm my takeoff data right now, which turns all of these numbers green. And I'm gonna set my takeoff trim, and that's gonna be up 1.6. And here's your trim over here. And this is gonna make what I call the Pac-Man sound. Ready? So there's 1.6. Now then, the trims are off a little bit. I think this is maybe a bug with the airplane. So I always like to subtract at least 3, sometimes 4. If I'm in the longer version, I'll subtract 4 from this trim setting here. In the shorter version, 3. And that just makes for a nice smooth rotation. Okay, so that's good. The memo panel, all of these are normal, so that's good. And our power management is set to take off. And that's good. Have you noticed if you look over here, the labels here are a little dull? It's kind of hard to see. So if you come down here and down on this, here are the pedestal lights, and you can dial this up. See how it's easier to read these? I like to go and turn these up during the daylight. If it's nighttime, you also might do a click or two of floodlight to make it easier to see. And now, all of a sudden, you can read these a lot better. So that's really pretty good. I think it's time to go. So we can go and we can either do a pushback, and there's several ways to do a pushback here. We've got this guy standing over there in the sled. You can use GSX. You could use pushback helper. And Pushback Helper is a really cool little application. It just popped up on the screen. This is free at flightsim.to, and this is your great generic, it takes care of everything, pushback. So I'm gonna go and my parking brakes are on. I'm gonna release the tug, and notice you can click in the airplane here and Pushback Helper stays on top. Really helpful. Let's call the tug. Here comes the sled. And it takes a little bit of time to come on over. You can also go outside the airplane, and Pushback Helper will stay right up there. It's time for a good chance for a sip of coffee. And by the way, in the wintertime, or if you are live streaming or flight simming, if you get a coffee mug that keeps your coffee hot like this, it's mission critical. And you can tell that it's ready to go when it kind of does a little bit of a click. You're going to see that, you see a jitter or jump a bit, it's connected to the airplane there. So we'll come on down here. We're going to release the parking brake. And then we can look out here and hit reverse, and back we go. And you can see a nice little go outside. We're going to go and do a little bit of a left turn here. You can hear the sound that you hear. That is the hotel mode. That's the engine in APU mode. And that's probably pretty good. I'm going to have them straighten out the wheel here and stop. Come on back into the airplane. And we're going to do parking brakes. Look up here. Hit the tug button again. As soon as I see the tug start to roll away, then I'm going to say thank you and click that, and we're done with our pushback. And now it's time to do the before propeller rotation checklist. So CDL's on, FMS and takeoff data is confirmed and set, trims are set, Doors are open, doors are closed, and seatbelts. Uh-oh, did we do seatbelts? Hey, we sure did. Seatbelts are on. The beacon is not on. So we're gonna go and turn on the beacon. And the beacon is now on. Look outside, make sure we're clear. All clear. The co-pilot's gonna look over the shoulder and look at the prop as best you can. And then we're gonna go ahead and spin the prop. So turning off the prop brake. So I've unguarded it. And the green light goes out and we should see unlock and ready. So flip it, it says ready, red unlock. Once I see those, I'm gonna guard it again. And if you look down here, you can see prop rotation is now 12%. And then we can go down here and this condition lever for engine, the right engine, can now go up to auto. And if you go outside, you're gonna notice your propeller starts spinning faster. And you're gonna hear the tempo of that. Now, if you're really good at taxiing the airplane, you could do a one-engine taxi. I'm not that good at it yet. So I'm not gonna do a one-engine taxi. So we're gonna go ahead and start engine number 1. So engine number, oh, did I do my fuel pumps wrong? Yeah, I think I did. I did my fuel pumps wrong. I turned on the wrong fuel pump. Okay, but great. Oops, there's my first big oops for this one. We're running fuel pump number 1. Oh, wait a minute. No, we did it. We did the fuel test. That's right. We did the fuel test. That's what we did. Okay, so I didn't screw it up that bad. Let's go and do start A and B again, and we're going to start engine number 1. Editing might be good on that. Come on over here, and you can see there's 10% there, and fuel cutoff goes on. And if you go outside real quick, you can go and watch the propeller spin. Yep, I forgot I did that fuel test. Actually, from what I understand, you leave the fuel pumps on quite a bit. You need to have the fuel lines pressured to get fuel readings. So usually you kind of think, nah, we turn on the fuel pumps only when we need them. Now, apparently on this thing, you leave them on a lot longer. That's kind of a change in the flow as I study the airplane more. And now our airplane, that engine's going, so my condition lever is going to go up to auto, and you'll see the prop is spinning faster, and it's also going the noise changes a little bit too. Definitely changed there. And that looks pretty good. Let's do before taxi checklist. FWS, recall is clear. Cockpit comm hatch, that's the mailbox, it's closed. Condition levers are auto. Anti-ice is not needed. The true. So this is this system up here. We're gonna unguard it and turn it on, and it will re-guard itself. And so we're gonna go ahead and say that's done. There is an anti-skid test you can do. So we'll do that, and you'll see the anti-skid test goes on. While we're doing that, I'm gonna go flaps 15 degrees for takeoff. And then when you see anti-skid test with green ends, that's good news. So the anti-skid test is good, flaps are 15, nose wheel steering is on. It's time to go. So from here, we're gonna get the starter off. We're gonna go ahead and turn on the probe heaters. I'm gonna do a cabin call, let them know that we're gonna start rolling the airplane around a bit. And then we're gonna turn off the wing lights and turn on the taxi light. And it is taxi time. So let's see, if you've got rudder pedals, feet on the rudder pedals, because as soon as you turn off the parking brake, this airplane goes. So I'm gonna go ahead and tap my brakes, make sure they're working, and 2 clicks on the brake handle, and then immediately put your brakes on. Immediately put those brakes on so that you can hold the airplane in place. I'm also coming over here to Navigraph, and I'm going and I'm zooming in here. This is gonna put me all set up in the really nice zoom mode. Not all airports are as nicely designed as others. This one isn't. So you can come over here and use this. I like to have a moving map set up for taxi because we go to so many different places. It's just easier. Look left, clear. Look right, clear, hand on the throttle, release the brakes, and start your turn. Taxiway Alpha all the way out to runway 10. And as we look down here, we have a new checklist. Taxi lights are on. Brake check. So as you're going along, do both your brakes, make sure that the airplane stops. So brakes are checked. Flight control guidance panel is not set. I shouldn't have clicked that. We got a couple of things that we have to do on the do up here on the autopilot. Flight guidance control panel. Okay, here's taxiway Alpha. Slow down a bit. Let's do a bit of a turn. Come on around here. And now I'm going to slow it down even more. And on the flight guidance panel, we're going to go and hit the heading button. And you see heading select popped up. And then we're going to hit the nav button, and that arms LNAV. We're going to go to the IAS button and hit it once. That activates IAS. We're going to click it a second time, and it changes it to pitch hold. Okay? Now it's all set up and ready to go. So that's set. Takeoff config test. So as we're coming out to the runway, we're going to want to go and turn off the gust lock, hit the takeoff config check. If it doesn't beep at you, you're good to go, and that checklist is now done too. Let's go over here, and we're going to use click spots to switch over to map mode. And I'm going to set my map up the way I like it. As you see, this airplane taxis rather quickly. So you're going to probably do the brakes more than anything. I don't know if that's the way the real airplane is. It doesn't just sit here and do, you know, a thrust idle taxi at, 12 knots like the Airbus or something. Scenery at this airport is absolutely outstanding. When you get a chance, the thing about Flight Simulator, be sure you look out the windows because the scenery is so awesome. And if you look, our ground speed is now up to 25 knots, so this airplane really just takes off. Could be that I've got my ground idle set a little bit too high. I don't know. On the other hand, it's okay to probably, as long as you're looking outside the window here and stay centered up, go ahead and taxi on down because we got the long way to go. Sorry about the long sniff out there. Allergy season has just begun where I live. If we were on VATSIM right now, I would be getting yelled at because I have been very negligent about setting my transponder. So we'll go way down super slow and let's go to surveillance and let's just squawk 2000. And enter. And we're going to go from standby to on. Totally forgot to do that. Very bad pilot. Now we'll also go to nav and we'll do ND overlays. Traffic is above, and I'm going to turn off the terrain for a little bit. The terrain radar looks really good, except over water, and then it really kind of washes out your navigation display. You can go down here and turn on nav aids in airports, and that's helpful. We have a before takeoff checklist that has just shown up. And we're finally coming to the end of this very long taxi. Okay, this is the ILS hold line, so if there's ILS going on, you might have to hold behind there. It's a beautiful sunny day, no need for ILS approaches. Although, that being said, I will set up the ILS in the flight because it just provides you with an extra level of guidance on your descent, because we're looking at computer screens, not the real world, so our depth perception is really not as good as it would be in the real world. So setting up an ILS, even if you're not doing it, gives you another good visual indicator, mostly if you're on the glide slope, up until the point that you're, you know, you can see the PAPI lights. And here's runway 10. And we're gonna stop right here. And we're gonna go down, do the parking brake. And checklist. Takeoff briefing has been done, but not very well. Gust lock is done. Flight controls. We didn't really do the flight control check. Flight controls are checking. And as you can see over here, you can see my nose wheel tiller. The twist stick on Thrustmaster sticks tends to be a little bit dodgy. It's the only problem that I have with the Thrustmaster stick right now. And there's some things I'm told you can do about it, but I've tried and it doesn't seem to work, so. Transponder and TCAS is checked and on. Boost function, don't need it. Airflow is good, normal. Cabin crew is seats for takeoff. Cabin crew is set. Engine bleeds are normal. External lights are good. Lateral flight director bar. Over on the spy flight, this one always gets a big question. So the flight director, that's the green crosshairs, and it basically directs you, tells you which way to fly the airplane. Well, right now it's off to the side. So as we go to line up on the runway, this thing should center itself. So that's what it's waiting for. And then the last thing is rudder cam is centered. It is. So we're cleared onto the runway. Strobes going on. Parking brakes going off. And out we go. The last thing to do is landing lights. And I always wait until I'm pointed down the runway before I do landing lights. Landing lights on some airplanes are incredibly bright. And if there was an airplane holding on the other side of the runway or over there, or somebody else, you could actually, you kind of blind people with how bright those lights are. So what I generally do is I wait until I'm pointed right down the runway, and then I do my landing lights. Okay? A quick scan of the panel says everything is good and groovy. And you can see now that center, the lateral flight director bar is centered. So that's good to go. And we are ready for takeoff. So what we do is I usually gently push my throttles up to what's called the notch. And that's sort of like climb, CL, or takeoff mode in an Airbus or a CRJ. And there's V1 and rotate. We have a little bit of a crosswind there. Positive rate of climb, gear. Gear lever works great in this airplane. It really does. As the gear goes up, you want to turn off that taxi nose light. And you also want to turn on the yaw dampers. And you also hit the IAS button again for your climb. We're looking for a little white triangle. We just passed it. That lets us know it's flaps time. And let's see, it wants a little bit of a turn to the right here on the flight directors. There we go. And let's get some help from AP. There's AP. Always good to get that kicked into gear. And we're going to go to climb mode. So gear is up, flaps up, we're in climb mode. LNAV seems to have us, so that's good too. We're also bouncing around a bit. But if you get a chance, look outside and see the incredible scenery out here at St. Croix. Absolutely outstanding. It's so much fun to see that. And if you don't get to travel as much as you'd like me, this is almost as good as really getting to go there. After takeoff checklist, landing gear is up, flaps are up, power management is set to climb, engine bleeds are normal, taxi and takeoff lights are off, altimeters are set. We're not climbing high enough to go to standard altimeter. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'd like to keep my heading bug centered. So altimeters are set and that checklist is now done. This is such a short flight, so one of the things is we do have an ILS that we're gonna set up, even though it's gonna be a nice visual landing. So we're gonna come down here while we got a sec, go to nav, go to VOR and ILS. I'm gonna click in the standby, and then we're gonna put in the ILS frequency, which is 110.3, 110.3. I'm gonna verify it before I hit enter. So it's supposed to automatically switch frequencies, but it doesn't do it quite as quick as I would like it to. Oh, let's go ahead and continue the climb to 12,000. Not paying attention. So continuing our climb to 12,000 feet. And there's 12,000. Make sure IAS and altitude selector still showing up. So anyhow, I have that standing by and ready to go. Let's also come on down here to ND overlay. We have traffic above. We could turn on terrain. Again, it's gonna be water. So that's, like I said, I find that a little bit distracting. We could also go over here and, since it's such a short flight, set the decision height, or MDA. I'm going to use an MDA, and that's 311 feet. The closest you're going to get is you have to round here, so 310 is close. And you see how it's flashing? To stop it flashing, slide over to the co-pilot side and hit that co-pilot, switch the co-pilot to MDA2, and you're good. You're set. And out we go. Now I'm going to make the map a little bit bigger. And there we go. So there's our cruise. And we can just go ahead and let's look at terrain. And you can see what I'm seeing. So see how it kind of washes stuff out a little bit, but it also shows you where the islands are, so that's pretty good. Passing 7,000 feet. Everything looks good here. And this is just such a fun, cool little airplane. Wing views are nice. The cabin itself is pretty nice. I do have, we have seatbelts and devices. So we have lights. And it's a pretty nice little cabin. They did a good job here. Passing 8,000 and change. Back in the cabin while we're doing a climb. So this airplane does not have cargo underneath. Cargo is not underneath the floor. It's actually between the cockpit and the passenger cabin. So if you come up here, that's not the cockpit door. This is the cargo area. So we've got the cargo area here. So we can close that door. So your checked bags are going to go in here, and then they've got these little partitions that they'll roll over to keep things from rolling around. There's the cargo door. And then on this side, you open the door this way. And then we can kind of come on in here. There's an interesting thing about this airplane. If you look up here, there's the escape hatch. So that's the escape hatch for the cockpit. These are the stairs. So that's how you, if you have to climb up to the escape hatch, you know, you use this as a handhold and also footholds. So then we can come back around here and we'll close one half and close the other half. It looks like a really big, spacious cockpit, but my guess is it's probably not huge. It's probably not super duper huge or anything. And there's 10,000 feet. Landing lights can go off. We've already turned off the takeoff taxi light. We might do a cabin call, let the cabin crew know if they can get up. At 10,000 feet, we're also no longer in sterile cockpit. As we get close to 12,000 feet, you're going to notice your speed's going to go up. So as the speed starts to climb a little bit, we're going to go ahead and do a couple of changes. Here's our final cruising altitude. So I'm going to go and do traffic normal for TCAS. And as we get about 200 feet at that point, I'm going to come over here and we're going to go to cruise mode. So there's cruise mode. Our speed's going to slowly begin to climb here a bit as we settle into our final cruising altitude. And you could also see here the little red speed bug just shot straight up to the top to 245 knots. So the airplane is just going to accelerate nicely. We've already got a couple of things set. So we've set our decision height and I've set an ILS. There's one more thing that we'll set here, and that is over on the chart. It's called the inbound course to the ILS. And that's going to be 078 degrees. So 078 degrees, the way we do that is come on over here, and the airplane will continue to track, but I'm going to go ahead and zero out my heading bug. I'm going to switch this from basically the flight management computer to VOR to VOR navigation, and I'm going to set that course, which is a small number down here, and we're going to set that to 078. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, and I always, if you move your mouse just a bit, oops, wrong one, 078, 06, 07, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we're going to get back on over to LNAV mode. And so now we've set everything for our approach. Our speed is coming up. The airplane does tend to not accelerate beyond. It tends not to accelerate beyond the about 210 knots. So it doesn't go all the way up here. Here is our approach. That looks like it's really pretty good. So on the arrival altimeter, so we're going right over the airport here. So we're going to come in right over the airport. We could have also done the San Juan arrival here. This is the one we didn't do, but it does show us going down to about 6,000 feet. So I'm going to make that my initial descent to 6,000 feet as we fly over the airport, and then we'll do the procedure turnaround here and come on back in. And that after that, it's 3,200 feet. So 6,000 to fly over the airport, and then 3,200 for our final plunge. And we're going to probably, after we fly over the airport, we're going to have to navigate a little bit to the south, to the right of the runway here. But there's plenty of time for that as we get to look at the islands and look at those beaches and look at the nice water and kind of go, wonderful place. Enjoy a sip of your morning coffee. Normally on these YouTube videos, at this point in time, I would stop the video. But we're about ready to start our top of descent. You can tell by coming over here and hitting the progress button. We are 41 miles from top of descent. We pretty much made all the preparations here. We are 83 miles out from San Juan, and 15 minutes. We're supposed to land at 15:49 Zulu. So I guess it says about 20 minutes here. So we get to enjoy a little bit. If this is your first time with me here on YouTube, I'm brand new to YouTube. So all the usual things about a YouTube channel. If you like the video, the like button really helps out an awful lot. I'm also still really new on YouTube, so I'm still reading all the comments and appreciate them and say thank you. If there's a video flight you'd like to see me do, please feel free to put that in the comments as well. I've done several cold and darks based on those. If you really like what you're seeing, there's several ways to show a little bit more support. One way, just come on over and fly with us on the Spy Flight. We depart every day at 1900 Zulu, Tuesday through Sunday on Twitch. That's during the summer months. It's 3 o'clock Eastern time in the United States. Every flight is a group flight. Usually the first flight is a chill out flight in multiplayer, so we can ask questions, answer questions, catch up, tell stupid jokes. And then after we get that one done, the next thing that we'll do is usually jump on and do a couple of flights on VATSIM. There's a Discord server, link in the description below, and that's a great place to check in with the spy flight when we're not live streaming and stuff. There are some really cool people that are over on the spy flight Discord server, including a couple of real-world pilots. There's one real pilot right now that is transitioning from the Q400 to the Airbus, and he's there all the time answering really, great questions about being an airline pilot, and is there all the time. So that's a cool thing over on Discord. I have moved over to full-time content creation. I'm still pretty new at this, but it's how I'm paying the bills. So if you do like what you see, there's several ways to help out. There is a Ko-fi button now. So there's Ko-fi, there's Patreon, or just come on over to the Spy Flight and do a subscription over on Twitch. Those three ways really help as I'm transitioning to paying the bills this way, and so far so good. But could always use a little extra support if you've got the time and the money. And if you don't have the money, you don't have to do anything. Just come over, fly, and have fun. The Patreon page is something I've recently started, and what I'm doing there is a first thing in the morning pre-flight video, sort of a first cup of coffee and our first flight. I go through all the charts that we're going to need for that flight, talk about the departures, the arrivals, and then look at some of the flights that we're going to be doing later on that day. We look for VATSIM events on that, and that's something that's every morning. About 1300 Zulu is about when I try and get that video produced, and so that's over on Patreon. Okay, we are coming up here a little bit closer, so we're going to zoom the map a bit. So there is our top of descent. We are going to go to 6,000 feet. So now that we're coming up close with this top of descent here, I'm going to slide over here, and I'm going to take this out of managed mode. Call me a control freak, and then I'm going to move my bug down to about where we are right now. But as I do my descent, I want a little bit more control of my speed, mostly because if we're flying this on VATSIM, ATC expects you to be in control of your speed. So we've got that. We also know that we're going to descend to 6,000 feet. When we get to 5 miles or less, that's when I'm going to go ahead and get ready and push the buttons for the descent. But we're all set and ready to go. The altimeter is 3004. By the way, one of the things that I do is over the years I've come up with this little notepad, and I call it the flight strip. And this is all the information that I need to do this flight and do it on VATSIM. This is how I take notes. If you're new on VATSIM, I suggest a pad of paper and a pen. But eventually, doing something like this saves paper. If you like what you see there, just look in the description below. I will cut and paste this in there. So what you can do is copy and paste it into your own version of Notepad, and then you get to change it any way that you want to make it work for you. I just found that really works out nicely, and I kind of like that one. And another opportunity to just look out and enjoy the view. There is something about island flying, and maybe it's just me, but I always like coming up on the island that we're going to be landing on. I think if I had my life to live all over again, I would have liked to have flown something like this around the islands, or probably cargo. The airlines, yeah, that would have been nice, but, you know, passengers have become so crazy that I just kind of feel like, you know, I think I'd be happier flying, you know, boxes of Wilson volleyballs, as long as Tom Hanks doesn't show up. And if you don't get that joke, I'm referring to the movie Castaway. Fuel used is looking good. Another good thing to do on flights is take a look at the EFOB number, estimated fuel on board. And remember the number that we took off the flight plan earlier? So go to page 1, and that number that we put in at the beginning, final reserve and alternate, 780. Okay, that's the amount of fuel that we need to fly for half an hour. It's also the amount of fuel that we need to get to our alternate, and then the amount of fuel that gives us 15 extra minutes of flying, okay? That's the estimated fuel on board that you need when you touch down. And as you can see, my EFOB is bigger than the number on the flight plan. That's good news. That's good news. So I keep a close eye on that, and particularly the big jets, if I'm on across the pond, you know, flying from one side of the Atlantic to another, I really keep an eye on that because you can run out of gas. 8 miles to top of descent. So when we get to about 5 miles, we'll set our altitude, press the button, and go. And here is our turn. There is that waypoint there. You can see Wesson here. There is also a hold that it's put in for us automatically. We're going to be off LNAV, so it won't take it. Do the hold, but it's there in case we need it. And there is 5 miles to top of descent. So as we get to 5, I'm going to go ahead and drop my altitude to 6,000 feet. Again, it's that small number, 9, 8, 7. And so we want to do 6,000 feet over the airport. And you can also see now we've got a descent deviation, and we now have a descent deviation indicator there. So when it starts to go down, we could start to go down. What I'm going to do is let's go ahead and hit the IAS button. That's going to start our descent. And then I'm going to pull the throttles back a little bit and slow it down. I'm also going to come over here and start reducing my speed, because usually when you're starting to come into an airport like this, you're coming in about 210 knots. So I'm going to put 210 knots and reduce the throttles even more and let the airplane manage our descent down to 6,000 feet. I also like to hit the center of the heading bug, even though LNAV's got us right now. Okay, and now you can see the descent deviations kicked in. So what we need to do is pull the throttles back even more. And the goal is to keep that pink box centered. Now it's not perfect. It's going to bounce around a little bit, but there you go. We're going to go from 40 miles to 20 miles now. And look outside, and oh my gosh, there's our airport, just like we were hoping for. If you're flying on VATSIM, expect changes to your routing. You know, those things are going to happen, and they happen a lot. So for instance, ATC may call and say, Silver Airways 441, turn left heading 250 degrees. Oh, okay. So we're going to have to go to heading mode now and left to 250 degrees. And they may even tell you why. They usually tell you why. In this case, vectors for your final approach. Or vectors for spacing is another one. So there's 250 degrees. At this point, we're off of LNAV. So I'm going to go ahead and switch this over to radio nav. And I'm going to switch in the ILS. Okay, so those are good. And we're at 10,000 feet, so not so bad. We're coming up on 10,000 feet. Let's go ahead and do landing lights. Let's do a cabin call. Such a short flight, didn't turn off the seatbelt sign or anything like that. And if you look, there is our course. Now, we're not doing an exact course. We're sort of going out this way. That might be because ATC has said vectors for spacing. And now they're also going to say descend and maintain 3,000. So continue our descent to 3,000. And there's 3,000 feet. And let's go and reduce our speed even more so that we can descend a little bit faster. Not our speed, increase the rate of descent. Oh, and also go to the ND overlay, and we want traffic now below us. So it's going to watch out for airplanes below us. The next thing to do also, if you've got a second, kind of refresh your memory. We're coming in on runway 8. This is a small airplane. Probably we're going to get off at Sierra 3. And Silver Airways parks over here on the D concourse. In fact, you'll see these, that's where Silver Airways parks. So all of those are really pretty good. There's our airplane on the map. I usually like to go ahead and keep it in a moving map here for landing, because I've got everything I need right here like the real pilots. ATC says 180, 180 knots. So it's going to reduce our speed, and they've said turn right heading 270. So right to 270, they're starting to bring us in now for the approach to the runway. They may also say, hey, you are not descending fast enough. Get down there. You know, increase your rate of descent. No speed brakes on the airplane, so we are also picking up glide slope and localizer. So you can see a little half triangle there and a half triangle there. We're not set up on the glide slope and localizer, but we're picking it up. ATC says turn right heading 280. So they're trying to bring us in a little bit more. So 280. There's our speed to 170, 180, so we can do a notch of flaps. That's going to help us with our descent. It's also right on the flap line, so you might get beeped a little bit, passing 7,000 feet. Yeah, we're going to bump right up there. So let's go ahead and reduce our speed target a little bit. We're going to go to 170. There's the airport. So 6,000 feet. Came in a little bit on the high side, but as you can see, you can fix these things. And we're on a 20-mile range. I'm going to go and reduce my map now to 10 miles. If you're like me and you kind of scrunch around in your chair a little bit to get comfortable, now is an incredibly good time to sit up, be able to put your feet on your rudder pedals if you have them. So we're going to go just a little bit beyond Wesson here and then turn back in. Passing 5,000 feet. Looking pretty good. If you start to get down, as you start to get low, you can see the highway, and there's a highway over, there's a bridge over the highway here. A bridge over the river. And this is the really cool part about the flight sim. As you get a little bit lower, you start to see incredible details on the ground. ATC has called and would like us to do 300 degrees on the heading. So 300 degrees and descend and maintain 2,500. So we'll continue to let it go down to 2,500. Make sure IAS is still good. And now ATC has said, okay, right turn, join the localizer. So we're going to go ahead and turn off the autopilot and start our turn. 180 knots until we get about 5 miles from the runway. That's usually a fairly common occurrence. So a nice little turn. Descending a bit fast. Now, one of the things is, you know, when you're seated in the cockpit and stuff, it's a little bit hard to see some of the gauges and stuff. So seeing, like, you know, your rate of descent, seeing the glide slope and localizer is sometimes hard in the airplane. Okay, we're getting a little too slow, but we can also do landing gear. And as a part of the descent, and I've totally been a bad pilot, and I've blown off my approach checklists and everything. This is a short flight. So did blow those off. So landing gear will also go power to takeoff, and still trying to hold 180 knots. We appear to be a bit bouncy here today. We're slowly creeping up on the localizer. And if you look way out here, you can see the runway lights just starting to show up. Okay, we're starting to get a little bit high. So let's go down just a bit and descend with the localizer. And one of the things you can use is, even though it's kind of hard to see, you could use your flight directors, and that's going to help you too. We're starting to get a little fast here. Airplane seems to take off and land pretty good at 100 knots, right around there. And I kind of overflew a little bit, so we'll come over here. How we doing on glide slope? Oh, we're way high. So let's reduce some power, see if we can't drop this down. Okay, this is the 5 mile line there. You can see the airport is starting to show up on the map. So that's when we could reduce our speed. Still a little bit high here. Little bit to the right of the runway, and we do have some bounces in the atmosphere today. As we start to get a little bit closer, one of the other things I'm going to do is take this speed target, and this is just a bug right now. It's just I'm using this as a speed bug so that I can keep an eye on about 110 knots, which is what I usually like to land this thing at. As we get closer to the runway, I'm also transitioning more to looking outside the airplane. I'm looking for PAPI lights. We're a little high. We're getting bounced all over the place. But you know, I'll bet if we were on the real ATR on this particular flight, and there's 5 miles, so we can now start reducing our speed. I'm a little bit high to around 110. We can also reduce our rate of descent because I'm catching up with the glide slope. How about another notch of flaps? That might be a good thing to do. And speed's continuing to unwind slowly. There's some more flap there. Wow, are we getting bounced all over? Okay, remember that speed bug I was talking about? So there's my landing speed. So you're gonna need to increase your throttle because you don't want to go below that. That's stall territory. Flaps are full. Auto brakes and speed brakes, nah, we don't need them on this airplane. We don't need that. Okay, we're actually a little high now. And I still haven't picked out my PAPI lights yet. I think we're gonna be a little on the crabby side for this landing. So for a crosswind landing like this, at the last second, you're gonna kick the rudder around and dip the wing into the wind. You can also look at the wind arrow. Well, it's also diminishing pretty good now. Little slow, oh no. I wasn't watching my speed. There's so many things to watch, and we got these trees. Don't want to clip the trees. I hear maintenance gets really upset if you get branches in the landing gear.
Minimum.
Landing.
Minimum.
Now I'm finally seeing the PAPI lights.
200.
Wow. The choppiness really kind of bled off as
50,
we got closer to the ground.
40, 30, 20, 10.
Reverse. Reverser's off. Welcome to San Juan. If it's windy, I'll usually tuck up my flaps here. And we got a taxiway right here. Wow, it said my landing rate was 232. I don't think it was that bad. I'm a little off to the side here. Ought to get my nose wheel on that center line. And we're also off the runway, so landing lights can go off, strobes can go off. And there is the Silver Airways parking area. There's jetways here, but you'll also see some turnarounds. If you're going to be making left turns into your turnaround, then you can go ahead and feather your left engine and leave the right one going. But if you've got to make a right turn, I found that it's next to impossible. So as you look around here, you see these little white, these black lines and stuff. I believe that those are parking. Those are passenger walking ways. I don't see a line to line up on. So what I've been trying to do is set it up so I can put my passenger door right by that black line. So we'll add just a little bit on a right turn. So I'm going for that middle black line there. And again, I don't know if that's what that means or not. And I think that's pretty close. Little bit more. There it is. Parking brakes. And we're gonna feather engine number 1. And let's see, let's try. Never got my taxi lights on. Very bad pilot there. Oh, turn off the probe heaters. What'd you get on the ground? We got those. And we're gonna go cut off on engine 1. We are feathering prop 2, and we also need to put that control lock on. And as prop 2 begins to wind down a bit, come on up here, and you should see the prop brake should say ready, and we can turn it on. And if it goes to a prop brake is green, you can turn on the wing light, turn off the beacon. Then we'll do devices, seat belts, emergency exits. I'm going to guard that one over there. We'll turn off the fuel pump for engine number 1, or the left engine. Let's put chocks in place. We're going to call a ground power cart, open the cargo door, open the main door. And if you look, I kind of got that there. So like I said, I think that that is a walkway. And that's how the passengers walk on over to the terminal. And I guess this would be gate 15. At least that's what I'm thinking. And we did it. So the last thing that I'm going to look at here is over here on my landing rate. It said it was 232. The biggest thing that I'm worrying about these days, though, is you see the red dot? That's where I touched down. I am trying to put my wheels on the 2 big white bars there. That's where you're supposed to land. I'm really working on that right now. Sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not. There is another landing rate monitor that I've got going. So if you're using Volanta, we can end the flight and then review the flight, and that's going to put the flight data in, and now we can come over here, and this shows you your whole flight path. And what we're going to do is come on over here, and there's the runway, and the red spot is where I landed. And so the red spot shows pretty much the same thing. So that's where I landed. But if you hover over, it says my landing rate on this one was 220. You can also read landing statistics. So this was 220, not quite as heavy as the other one. Landing rates, I think, in Flight Simulator are all over the place. They're computed differently, but there you go. That's kind of the way those sorts of things work. And also the airport here, the San Juan airport, is really pretty cool. Definitely worth going and doing a drone cam flight over and just getting to go and explore. If airports are your happy place, that is the thing to do. And we did it. You know, we managed to land, we didn't crash, and that's always a good thing. When it comes to these videos, I always do like to say this is not about the right way versus the wrong way. This is what I have found. This is what is working for me. I do have a private pilot's license. I have was able to fly a Cessna 152, a 172, and a Cardinal. I do not fly big airliners, but I do them quite a bit on Twitch and in flight simulators. So again, this is what works for me, and these videos are all about, I hope it's something that works for you. Again, I do read all questions and comments. If you caught me doing something wrong, please, please, please tell me. I would really like to hear about it. And I will look forward to seeing you next week here on YouTube and tomorrow on Twitch. Hope you can come and fly along. In the meantime, as always, I like to stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll see you in the friendly sim skies. Cheers.